We talk about what makes a car fun with a special guest from Jalopnik, next on Talking Cars. Hi there, and welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Tom Muchler.
I'm Jake Fisher.
I'm Raphael Orlov.
We have a guest today in Talking Cars,
Hello.
Raphael from Jalopnik.
Yep, jalopnik.com.
Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
I'm a little confused.
Yes.
We're talking about it's kind of a philosophical podcast. We're talking about what makes a car fun.
Right.
And behind us, we have a Toyota Avalon.
In sort of a maroony purple.
So
Yeah.
riddle me this. How does fun in Avalon, how does this all fit together?
All right, so everyone sort of thinks that we've been trained to think for the past, I don't know how many years, that there's a certain formula for a fun car that has to have certain kind of attributes, or else it's just not going to be fun.
Right.
You want something
Has to be a stick shift.
manual transmission, rear-wheel drive,
Tons of power.
ideally from some sort of very exotic engine. And that's the only, 2 doors, it's the only way you're gonna have a good time.
Right.
Something in probably that costs 60 grand and up.
At least.
And is some sort of exotic sports car. But as a trained automotive professional, I can tell you.
That's on your business card.
That's what
No
it
one else
says.
business, forgive me.
So I've driven all those cars, and I've also driven cars just like that one. In fact, I have one parked outside right now. And you can have a huge amount of fun in something like that. And just not only would no one expect it, but our brains are now hardwired to think that that's impossible. Because something like this, it's big, it's heavy, it's front wheel drive.
It understeers.
It's automatic. Yes, the U word is involved. And people don't know. People think that you can't get the tail out in a front wheel drive car, or that you'll just never have fun. But there's lots of sorts of. Here's how I'll put it. Fun in a car is when you are engaging with the vehicle, using it as a tool to enjoy a road or a track or wherever you are. And you might have to use different techniques, but you can still dissect a road in a very entertaining manner in something that's big and sloshy and front wheel drive like that.
So it's sort of the sneaky way of having fun. What do you think of all this?
Well, I mean, look, I tend to agree. I mean, it's about what you're doing with the car rather than what the car is itself. I mean, you could take I don't know. I could be in an Acura NSX, which is all-time favorite, whatever.
Sure.
And if I'm stuck in city traffic, it's not a whole lot of fun. Whereas if I am in a Civic and I'm doing a track day at Laguna Seca, it's going to be a great time, even though it's front drive and whatnot. I mean, look, I've done a bunch of amateur racing with SCCA, and I got my MR2, which is rear drive mid-engine, but most of the guys out there, they're driving Civics, they're driving Integras, they're driving front and drive cars, and they're having a good time. I mean, it's dissecting the track. It's about, the racing line. It's about, hitting threshold braking, doing, getting the most out of that car. So it's really where you're at, I think, more than, what the bones are of the car.
Okay, so we're talking about how a vehicle handles certain things you can do with its dynamics. How much of it's just the reward of the journey,
Yeah, so there are a couple ways to think about this, and it's important not to get them all too mixed up, because you have the idea of driving a slow car fast, which is a classic sort of internet rallying cry of people who are still driving their mom's cars.
Well, I mean, no. You know what? I will defend that because I owned a first-generation Mazda Miata, which defined driving a slow car.
Well, you say it defines driving a slow car fast, but to me, driving a slow car fast means I have a 1994 Nissan Maxima, and I am really trying to be up on this forum and justify myself.
Hey, that's the four-door sports car. Don't knock that.
Because I mean, the problem with that edict is you get to the ultimate response to it is, if driving a slow car fast is more fun than driving a fast car slow, the only thing there is something more fun of it than that, which is driving a fast car fast.
Right.
But the problem is, in the world that we live in, the fast cars are too fast. The roads it's actually the roads which are too slow.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not just being stuck in NSX in traffic, it's being stuck in NSX at 60 miles an hour on a back road, and you don't want to push it to 120.
Well, what a fast car has turned into.
Yeah.
is unbelievable. I mean, really, and you look at a Honda Odyssey minivan. I mean, the performance numbers that thing is doing is what sports cars did in the 70s and 80s.
Well, that's true. I mean, we're knocking the Avalon hybrid you're driving. That thing,
Yeah.
0 to 60 is 8.1 seconds. It has tons of grip, decent brakes. I mean, dynamic capabilities that are really impressive.
Well, what's funny about it is not just the speed of it, but the balance of performance. So when people talk about sort of classic performance cars, it's difficult to talk about because cars become obsolete. Like a Hellcat now is fast, but in 10 years someone's going to have like an 800 horsepower car. And a Ferrari today is fast, but a Ferrari of 20 years ago, it's just not that fast anymore. So cars we idolize that really sort of stand out are cars that sort of have a good balance of performance, like a 90s M5.
Right.
Even though there are cars which are faster now, that's a car that you can still sort of enjoy as sort of a package. And the Avalon
Okay, I'm ready for this. Alrighty.
has a very enjoyable sort of power to traction ratio.
So 25 years from now, I will be scouring Craigslist in Florida looking for someone selling grandma's Avalon out of the garage with only 16,000 miles on it. Wow, this thing was really balanced back in 2016.
Lessons that you will learn from driving the Avalon will inform your future decisions. It's a fun car to just push. It's like, whereas something with like a, I don't know, some sort of more high-strung sports car, you're going to be bored below a limit. This is a car that really, more than other cars, will allow you to explore sort of what happens when I ask too much of the car, or how can I try and play around to get a little bit more out of a little bit more speed or a little bit more adjustment, and there's a lot of it which helps you out on that, the weight and the suspension, which are both things which, I mean, personally, growing up in the 90s, there was no car I hated more than a Toyota Avalon because it was like everything wrong. But like all of the weight and like how cushy the suspension is, how much travel there is, really means you can like feel what's going on with the car as to sort of how much momentum whether it sort of wants to be going into this corner at this speed or not, or sort of how the body sort of rolls around as you go into a corner. And these are things which are true of all cars all the time. But if you are driving something with really high limits of adhesion, you're just not even going to notice it, and you're not going to learn it.
Well, I think part of the problem is that, and maybe we're jaded auto journalists, or maybe people are jaded by watching people like us. I mean, we got this 327-acre track right behind us, and we could go get a, Corvette or whatever it is, and we could go and actually bring a fast car fast. We could drive the car at the limit. A few weeks ago we had the AMG GT out here, and we were driving on the edge, and we were, sliding the car around, and we could do all that stuff. Thing is that when I drove that car home and picked up the kid from the school,
It's not that fun, really. I mean, it looks cool.
I hate to say it, and I kind of like the 63, the Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG better, just because it was kind of like a sedan. But still, I mean, like I can't, power slide the car coming out of the mall parking lot. I can't. I could. I could.
You could. You're
don't-
not going to.
I'm not. I'm not going to. I'm going to look in the camera.
But the other thing that's fun about the Avalon is this car is invisible. No one notices
Right,
this
because
car.
you get in the other car, it's like, look at me, everyone look at me, and they're basically assuming you're going too fast, even if you're not. This, you're assuming you're okay. But it's like, the problem I think really comes down to, is if you look on the internet and you look at, these videos that we're putting out too, we drive fast cars fast. You can't do that in real life. There's no place to actually take an AMG GT and bring it to the limits, even to where the tires are squealing.
Yeah.
Which you can do here, and maybe
Easily.
even be, under the speed limit on a back road.
Yeah.
And you could feel, like you said, I'm now pushing the car, I'm actually engaging with the car, as opposed to being so far down below the limits of the vehicle.
But I mean, also extending the definition of fun and what it means to be an automotive journalist in fun is, before I started doing this job, excuse me, I would go on the forums. I would be on the forums for the cars that I owned. I had an Infiniti G20, so that was the Center SCR forums. I'd have a Volkswagen Passat, so it was VW Vortex. And you'd wind up with certain beliefs. You wind up with V8 muscle cars are bad, or Volvos and Saabs are great. You had these really sort of very minor, these biases of what was fun and what wasn't.
Yeah, people putting you into sort of a, like, either it conforms to this sort of
Right.
idea of a sports car, or of a fun car, which is tied up in so many things: looks, cost, prestige, and it's not the case.
No, and what coming to this job has, and having done this now for 10 years and driven over 1,000 cars, there's a lot of fun to be had with a lot of different cars. I become much more Catholic, lowercase c,
Right.
in my likes. I mean, a Jeep Wrangler is not fun to drive on the road. The steering's kind of like this, but you know what? People wave at you. And there's something
Yeah.
fun about everyone waving at you in this
Absolutely.
Wrangler. Mike Quincy, one of our colleagues, he said, we recently tested a Smart 4 too. He said, it's kind of fun, and he got, raked over the coals in the comments saying it's fun. But there is something fun about this little golf cart that is underpowered, that sounds completely different, looks completely different, is this orange blobbo car. It's different,
And this is the other thing. So the other, like I'm saying, so there are other realms of discussion of this too, which is driving a car in spite of itself. So I can go on about how it's actually, these are very sort of positive qualities of front-wheel drive, allows you to sort of explore certain dynamic properties that rear-wheel drive wouldn't like immediately show you, and that the the weight and the suspension is like a good learning tool. But you could also just say, like, this is a grandma car and I'm going to thrash it to like the edge of its, like, to the very limit of whatever it can do. And you can I mean, part of this is just who I am.
Sure.
That I just like sort of screwing around with something.
being a bit of a contrarian.
Yeah, doing something that you're not supposed to do is like what sort of invisible sort of voice in your head or sort of argument on a forum is telling you that it's not going to be fun, and doing it in spite of itself is
But
actually.
I mean, okay, I got to ask though. Okay, so you have an Avalon, $40,000. Are
Yeah.
you going to tell? Okay, so you can have fun with an Avalon. Are you going to tell a car enthusiast, okay, you got your $40,000 to spend for the next 8 years? Are you going to get a discounted Chevy SS, which meets that, the
Right.
traditional
Car
definition of
driven. Yeah,
enthusiast
yeah.
car? Or are you going to get an Avalon because it's more subtle fun?
Right. Now, if I was talking to someone who was like you don't know how happy it would make me to go to someone who's like a Lamborghini owner and be like, listen,
You should get the Avalon.
one, you won't have to pay so many speeding tickets. But it's like, so some of it is that
There's no handprints on it when you park it.
there's a lot to sort of enjoy basically, but I'm not like, don't get me twisted. I'm not trying to tell someone that you're not going to have a good time in a Lamborghini, particularly if you've bought that Lamborghini.
Right.
What I'm trying to-
No, I've learned that quickly in the business too. If someone bought something, you ask them, how do you like it? And if
Yeah.
they say yes, you don't argue with them.
We learned that the hard
nod
way.
appreciatively.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that you don't necessarily need to press into that territory. You don't have to, think that the only way you're going to have a good time is by looking out for a sports car. That if you happen to be somebody who's got, an Avalon today, or I don't know, I used to have a Lexus Es from '93. If you've got like some car like that, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from going to a track day,
Right.
Sure.
going out on a back road and bombing it, and all of the traditional sports car experiences. Don't think for a moment that these are closed off to you because you have a car that doesn't sort of fit with the mold. And if you go out and do these events, track days in a Honda Civic or whatever,
Right.
you're going to have like a great time. I'm not trying to tell somebody that if you've got $40,000 to spend, go for a front wheel drive.
Avalon 1.
I would say if you really want to learn sort of the spirit of front wheel drive and sort of those limits of adhesion, there are probably smaller cars to deal with.
But it's about using what you already have, And I get these conversations with people all the time, whether it's a track day or autocrossing, where they're racing around a parking lot with cones, and they're like, well, I don't have a sports car, I just have this car. I'm like, well, take that out. It's fine.
Absolutely.
And it's like, it doesn't matter. It could be a front drive family sedan, but you could have a great time. You could learn how to be a better driver. We do a track event here. We actually, well, it's not a track event, it's a teen school. And we're showing teens how to drive better and really get the most out of their car. I mean, really understand how to stop the car quick and turn the car. We have people coming out here with a Tahoe. You know what? And I'm not saying you should go track day your Tahoe, but you know what? I mean, the car has a lot of capability. You can stop if you slam on the brakes. And part of it is certainly, I could take a Tahoe on a beautiful mountain road and have a good time. But the other point is, you shouldn't just kind of say, well, if I don't have a sports car, I can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's other avenues to this too. I mean, some of the nicest people I've met, people who I still talk with today, are enthusiasts I met talking about a Volkswagen Passat.
Right.
A station wagon, most of them were stick shifts, true, but
Sure.
Also, as I've aged, I've gotten to the point where, for me, automotive fun is hitching up an Airstream to my Durango, going out with my wife for a 2-week road trip.
Yeah.
That's fun. And, I'm not looking for the levels of adhesion. I'm not looking for vehicle, dynamics or control.
Sure.
It's the whole trip. It is a trip that, going back to what you said earlier, which I loved, this is a tool. This car is a tool that lets me do something. Even the lowly, stupid Nissan Rogue rental car I had last week in Florida, you know what? It got us to the beach where we had a good time. So, yeah, that car is no good. I do not enjoy driving that car, but it is part of my memory of having a happy experience, and that is fun.
In a very fundamental way, and a way that's sort of easy to forget, it's a vehicle. It is a way of sort of going out and enjoying it. And I think a lot of it is the way we're talking about in sports cars and performance driving. It's just a mindset. And something like a sports car is going to prepare you for a certain kind of driving. And a certain kind of adventure vehicle is going to set your brain up for thinking about, maybe I'll drive to Mojave.
Right.
But, all of these, the roads are waiting. All of these experiences are really maybe not necessarily waiting on a car for you to have, or waiting on a truck for you to have, but are just waiting for you to.
They're waiting for you.
Absolutely.
They're waiting for you to get into a mindset that says, I can have fun with what I have.
All of these cars are doing is sort of going out and getting them, is just sort of preparing your brain for what you think you're going to be doing with them. And you can take that exact same mindset and apply it to a lot more on sort of the automotive world than you would think.
I like this so much because I can't tell you how much I like this, because something
We're fighting the good
no,
fight.
No, something that has driven me nuts about this hobby, and it's about this hobby. It's about the Airstream hobby. I mean, is that these hobbies wind up being extraordinarily materialistic.
Sure.
I bought that Volkswagen Passat. I imported the European performance OEM suspension for it. I get the summer tires and the chip and.
It might be better,
it
maybe, but mostly
better.
it's that it's getting this guy ready.
Right, it's getting this guy ready. It's getting into the mindset of, okay, I can, let's go on a road trip this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's go to that autocross. Let's
I've
go
got
hang out with some of my car buddies.
I've got a European chip in my Passat. Maybe I'm going to eat muesli this morning. Like maybe I'm going to start living like that sort of more cultured or more European life than I imagine. And it's like, all of the muesli, you could eat that muesli today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about the journey. It's about the experiences. It's about the joy of driving. I think that's why we're all here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the cars. I mean, certainly the capability of the cars have gotten amazing. I think one of the problems maybe where we're going is it becomes this horsepower fight, the Nürburgring fight. Who could do it faster? And I think in some ways it's missing the point. It's like it's not about the car that's going to. We're not getting in races every time we're getting a sports car. That's not the point. It's about the enjoyment, about where you're going with it. I mean, certainly a nicer car is going to have a better feel to it, but it's like, it's almost the wrong conversation too many times. It's about which one's faster, which goes 0 to 60 faster, and that's not the point. It's about the enjoyment and just driving, and that's why I think we all like cars.
Right. I want to ask this. In the pursuit of driving fun, in the pursuit of enjoyment of cars, any regrets? Any things you wish you had done differently?
R.I.P. my Lexus. I killed that thing. So the thing that got me started on this whole sort of like, the first thing that got me started on this whole like maybe all of my conceptions about driving enjoyment are wrong is I started paying attention to the rally world. And I did a little bit of rally driver training in a completely. I went up to it and I was there with a friend of mine from the internet, and we were headed up there, and I was just like, man, I'm going to drive some all-wheel drive Subarus in the dirt. I'm going to do sort of the expected thing. It's going to be great. And he goes, they don't have Subarus. They have Ford Fiestas. This is Tim O'Neill up in New Hampshire.
Okay, sure.
I was just like, what? Are they like?
They're not
Are they
Fiesta
like
STs, are
tuned?
they?
Are they ST? Nope, they're totally normal. And I thought it was going to be awful. And before I knew it, I was totally sideways. I was like crossed up. I was like correcting. I was doing all sorts of like weird sort of momentum stuff that I'd never thought of before. And then I was like, maybe there's more out there. So then a few years later, I was sort of the guy who was in charge of buying Jalopnik a race car. This idea was, once legal found out about that idea, that program quickly ended. But I was still like, once you start looking at Craigslist, your mind.
So you started with Avalons, right?
Well, no, so it actually not very far off. So the first car I learned to drive on was a 92 Camry, four-speed, or four-cylinder auto.
Automatic, yeah.
They're all still out there, by the way.
Yeah, they
None
all
of them
still
died.
run.
Yeah, that car is still
that's-
plowing away 3,000 miles from where we are. It's a truck, or it's a tank. But I was like, maybe I can find a V6 manual of them, which is actually like a kind of spooky performance bargain. And while I was looking for that, I found on Craigslist a 1993 Lexus ES 300, which is a Camry under the skin, with a 5-speed manual, which is not a car that I knew
Yeah,
existed.
it's a unicorn. Yeah.
And so I bought it, and several months later, I finally fixed the overheating problem. And the first thing I did was I took it to run rallycross. Just like 2 local events, about an hour, 2 hours away from me. And
Racing on dirt, basically.
racing on dirt,
Yeah.
which is everything that we were talking about. Basically just taking the traction levels down and, just exploring what a car can do. And one, it was more fun than you could, more fun than you would possibly imagine could be had in a 1993 Lexus ES 300. But the only thing that I feel bad about was that the second day, second rallycross, a Jalopnik reader showed up with a Fiesta ST. And he and I maybe agreed that we weren't going to compete with each other on our times, but we tacitly did agree.
Sure.
It happened. People started driving a little bit faster, and people started pressing some limits. And my earlier decision to say, look, I just want to get home, quickly became, I have to set the fastest time. You do not understand.
The red mist. Yes.
Yeah.
So a flex pipe on an exhaust may have sadly parted ways with the vehicle, and a shift may have been missed, and a rod may have started to knock, and the car passed away on the Taconic Parkway on the way home. So the only
Which
thing
is a good place to drive, actually. It's a very
Oh,
enjoyable
seriously?
road.
It's a very good road if you have all of your cylinders working. There have been, I do not want to say how many times I've driven on that road with cars with parts of their engines not running at the time. But the car ended up in a junkyard in some tiny town over there, and I still think about it and I miss it.
Go visit it every now and then.
No, I don't.
Regrets?
Regrets. Well, let's see. Honestly, so my street car for many years was my Toyota MR2, 1987, first generation. And I tracked it, and then I turned it into a full-out race car. And I raced it, I probably bent every piece of metal on that poor little car. And part of me wishes it was stock again. Because that car was so nice, and it had body roll, and it was soft, and it kind of rode nice, and I chipped off all the sound deadening and all that kind of stuff.
Dry
and
ice in there.
I miss that car. I still have it. It's a race car now, but
But you miss its previous self.
I miss its previous self with the lower limits and
I've got to say the regrets I have, and this is going to contradict a few of the things we've said earlier. I think there's certain times that if you are an enthusiast and you're about to buy a car, let me put it this way: a lot of engineers who are car enthusiasts are also cheap.
Sure.
Or frugal.
Yeah.
And we look at, and it's like, gee, I don't want to spend another $2,000 on to get the performance version, or it's like I should have bought a Sentra SER back in the day. I regret. I loved that car. I regret not having that. I regret when I bought the Passat not stepping up to a 3 Series wagon, because what happens is if you're an enthusiast, these thoughts get into the back of your head of 2 years down the road with the Passat, I should have gotten the 3 Series, and that would have been nice. And I mean, at Consumer Reports, we're all about not just saving your money, but thinking about how you spend your money. And it pays to think about that. And sometimes it pays to spend a little bit more to
Yeah,
enjoy
I mean
things down the road.
that's the thing. You know, if you really want something in a car, maybe you should. I mean,
You should just
Otherwise, it's going to
splurge
drive you
for it.
insane.
Yep. Any other thoughts on what makes a car fun? We got to wrap it up.
You're wrong. Everything you were just saying is wrong.
That's what I was thinking.
Those are
You should
fair. Those
totally
are fair. You
still
should get the absolute
Get right
cheapest
back
thing you
in that
should get.
Passat. Well, start sliding it around.
No, I didn't say I didn't have fun with that Passat. I met my wife with that Passat. We had a lot of good times
Very
with that
true.
Passat.
My only other thought was I still say the most fun I ever had out in this track was your car, your Bug.
Oh my God,
I
yeah.
had so much fun driving that thing around in the snow. And we've driven all types of crazy stuff out here.
Yeah.
But it was just so different.
But that goes back to it
was a
being
blast.
different. That something
Sure.
that's different
This is very
Yeah.
fun. That doesn't fit in the traditional definition of fun is still fun.
Plus, you have heated seats in this one.
Yes, you have heat.
Heat, period. You have a heater, which is a significant step up from my
Huge
car.
step up.
So what we've concluded is heated seats are fun.
It's all about, yes.
That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Talking Cars. As always, we thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.